let's begin to talk about Chapter 4, Project Integration Management. In order to fully understand integration, you need to know what's happening. What's happening in integration? In integration, you are integrating, you are coordinating, you are moving the project along in a cohesive manner. You're developing a project charter, you're developing a project management plan, you're directing and managing project execution. You are monitoring and controlling project work, and you're performing integrated change control and closing phases or closing the project. That's what you're doing. So know the absolute terminology for integration. For those processes that you're working with in integration, understand and know what you're working with, what you're working on, what you're doing. It's so important. Now, going a step further in integration, understand how you are carrying out work needed to produce an output. What am I talking about? I'm talking about understanding your tools and techniques. Well, in integration, it's pretty easy. You've got expert judgment and PMIS, and you've got planning meetings, or you've got change control meetings, I should say. And that's pretty much it. It's very easy. You know, remembering the tools and techniques in integration. So that's a bit easy. But I would like you to take note of the outputs and how they become inputs to other things in integration. Do you see where I'm going with this? This is the difficulty many people face on the PMP exam. Being able to identify an output from a process and understanding where else in that particular process group where that output was derived, where else does that output go as an input? And also understanding at the same time, where does that output go in the same knowledge area? For example, project charter is an output of develop project charter. Develop project charter is an initiating. Where else does the project charter go? Now that's an easy one. There are only two processes in initiating. But also asking the question, where else does my project charter go in integration? Along that horizontal line. So you always want to be thinking about an output. On a vertical line for where else it goes, and on a horizontal line for where else it goes. It's so important. When you think about a tool and technique, you want to be asking yourself, where else on this horizontal line is this tool and technique used? Is it used anywhere else along the vertical line? You want to be asking yourself those questions. That's really going to help you get the information and let it sink in deep. So beyond Chapter 3, the work you really need to be doing is asking yourself critical questions such as, where else is this used? Maybe even first of all ask yourself, what is this? Yes, a project charter, but what is in it? And where else is it used? On the horizontal line or on the vertical line? What do I use as a tool and technique to come out with this output? And where else do I use this tool or technique? Ask yourself that. If you can take that model that we've just talked about for integration, and you can use it in scope, in time, in cost, in quality, in HR, in communications, in risk management, and procurement management, you've hit the jackpot. Because you're going to come away not just with head knowledge and memorization and cramming stuff. You're going to come away with a real deep understanding of what is being used, where, why, how. You're going to come away with a 360-degree perspective to inputs, tools, and techniques. And we're about to end, because you can take that model from integration and use it across the other knowledge areas. But I really want you to know this. Passing the PMP exam is not about cramming. It's not about memorizing ITTOs. Far from it. Is it about ITTOs? Oh, absolutely. It's about lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of ITTOs. But is that all it's about? No. Not at all. It's about understanding what an input is, where the input came from. This is big, so I'm going to spend time trying to land this thing right here. Where did the input come from? How did you get it? Who was responsible for giving you that input? Where did it come from? How did the person who had it get it? Did they work on it? Did someone else work on it? Where did it come from? Okay, now I understand. Okay, I understand where my scope baseline came from. I understand what my scope baseline consists of. I understand who participated in creating the scope baseline, because now I know it was the work breakdown structure, and I know what goes into creating a work breakdown structure. I know the team is involved. I know I need to be thinking about the different components in the WBS. You see where I'm going with this? I know I need to be thinking about work packages, but not just that, planning packages and control accounts. I know I also need to be thinking about the WBS numbering system. I know I need to be thinking about the code of accounts. I know I need to be thinking about how many levels are in that WBS. And I understand how to break down the highest level of work at level 1 and break it down into the lower levels. I understand where rolling wave planning comes in. I understand what a planning package is. I know it needs to be above the work package but below the control account. I understand what the WBS is all about. And I also understand what a WBS dictionary is all about. I understand. I can relate to it when I hear scope baseline. I'm not just thinking about some esoteric word out there, hanging out there, scope baseline. Oh yeah, that's a word, and I've memorized it and crammed it. No, that's not what you're doing. You're really being able to match a visual representation of what it is to the word. That's what I'm talking about. And if you have never seen a scope baseline, a real scope baseline, or a binder that contains a scope baseline, you really want to have a visual. You may actually want to look for a picture of a WBS. Just Google the term work breakdown structure example. You'll find one. How about Googling work breakdown structure dictionary? You'll find one. There are loads of them out there. Or if you're a PMI member and you really want to go deep, how about looking at the PMI standard for WBS creation? It's out there. We've got tons of examples in that book. How about doing that? Because it's not enough for you to say, okay, I've got the word, I know what the word is. No, you want to understand, you want to see, you want to know that you really know it. That's the secret. That's the secret. How about looking at a project scope statement and understanding that's all it is. That's all it is. It's a statement. It's in a document. I can look at it. I can read it. That's what a project scope statement is. So when I take my project scope statement, my WBS dictionary, and my work breakdown structure, all three together, that's what the PMI calls a scope baseline. And oh, I can actually use it in that process, and that process, and that process, and that one. And I actually can understand why I would use it there and there and there. That's the level of mastery you need to get to. That's the level of proficiency in your studying that you need to get to. You need to get to a level where you really truly know what you're talking about, what the PMI is talking about. Until you get to that granular level, you're still playing tiddlywinks, if you've ever played the game. But you're playing games because you really need to know the detail. Not knowing the detail could throw you so high off on the exam, you wouldn't believe it. Trust me. Trust me. I've seen all sorts. I know people who have gotten all below proficient. All. Every single area below proficient. It's possible if you don't do your homework well, if you don't really study, if you don't really break it apart. So you do need to break it apart. You do need to slice it into little bits and analyze. Look at it from different angles, perspectives. Ask questions. Ask questions. In fact, one of the best curriculums you could ever do is my 40 Days to PMP and CAPM Exam Success. That book and that program will take you from head knowledge and surface knowledge into the depth with over 800 open-ended questions that are gap finders. It will find your weaknesses. And the reason why I put that together in an open-ended question format is to illustrate and demonstrate to students that they don't know it. They don't. It's easy to put in front of anyone a multiple choice quiz and for you to guess and leave two out and maybe find the correct one in many instances. But for an open-ended question, for you to tackle an open-ended question, you really, truly need to have known it. And that's where I'm getting at. That's where I'm going to. I want you to truly understand. So, I'm going to leave you with this. Understand outputs, where they're going, on the horizontal line, on the vertical line. Understand tools and techniques, where they are used, and really, truly be able to apply the understanding to the real world. Have a visual. Look for these tools or techniques or these templates or documents, whatever is talked about in the PMBOK guide, understand it from a pragmatic standpoint. And that's why I put together the series, Pragmatic Project Management. You might want to take a look and think about these things from a pragmatic standpoint. That will help you on the exam. Not surface knowledge, but going into the depth, going into the details, and acing the test by being a master of the game. Be a master of what you profess, what you talk about. Go the extra mile. You'll be extremely happy you did. You'll be like those students who've passed the exam. Students who are glad they're over and done with it. But the way those folks got there was by being dogged, by being rugged, by being persistent, and by digging for details.